Hi, my name is Natalia Lopez, and today I'll be discussing the Strait of Hormuz crisis and how it connects to global energy systems and environmental impacts. Before I start, I just want to say this event highlights how disruptions in energy infrastructure don't really just affect markets, they also create serious environmental consequences. And I'm going to walk through what happened, why it matters, how it connects to the key scientific context from this course. So, first, what happened? On February 2026, a conflict between Iran, the United States, and Israel escalated into a much broader regional war, including kinetic military action. Airstrikes quickly targeted oil infrastructure across the Persian Gulf, including refineries, storage facilities, and ports. At the same time, ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz faced threats from missiles, drones, and naval activity, making the route extremely dangerous to traverse. And because of these risks, shipping companies stopped sending tankers through the strait in order to avoid harassment and military action, and as a result, major oil producing countries were forced to reduce or halt exports, disrupting about 20% of the global oil supply. And you see in Figure 1, the Strait of Hormuz is between Iran and Oman. So, why does this disruption matter? This disruption matters because the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important energy choke points in the world. And under normal circumstances, around 20 million barrels of oil pass through it each day. And there are very limited alternative routes to transport that oil somewhere else. And because of this, oil prices surged above $100 per barrel recently, and the effects spread quickly across global oil markets. And more broadly, this event shows how dependent the global economy is on stable energy flows and how disruptions in one location can completely impact the entire system, which is why we're experiencing skyrocketing of gas prices here in the United States. Just one of many examples. Now, slide 4, scientific context and energy systems. So, from a scientific perspective, this event connects directly to global energy systems. Oil is a primary energy source used for transportation, all industries, electricity, and it depends on the continuous extraction and transportation across global networks, especially via maritime routes. And when disruptions occur, countries are forced to adapt very quickly. And in some cases, this means increasing reliance on other fossil fuels like coal, which can heavily increase greenhouse gas emissions. And this shows how directly interconnected energy systems are, but how highly vulnerable they are, especially ones that rely heavily on fossil fuels. And you can see in Figure 2 the share of primary energy consumption from oil in 2024. You can see in the Middle East has one of the higher percentages, nearing 80, 90 to 100%, as well as here in Latin America as well. So, next, I want to talk about the environmental impacts of the Iran war and kinetic action that's happening. So, in addition to disrupting energy supply, this conflict has caused significant environmental damage. Airstrikes on oil facilities have released large amounts of toxic smoke and pollutants into the atmosphere. And in some areas, this has even led to, quote, black rain, where polluted particles mix with water and fall back to the ground, contaminating soil and water, rendering them unusable. So there's also an increased risk of oil spills from damaged tankers and infrastructure, which can harm marine systems in the Persian Gulf. These pollutants pose detrimental risks to human health, including respiratory illness and long-term diseases. And additionally, damage to desalination plants threatens access to clean drinking water in the region, which Iran is heavily dependent on. And so this leads me to the conclusion. The Strait of Hormuz crisis demonstrates how closely interconnected energy systems and environmental impacts are. A disruption in energy supply in this case doesn't just necessarily affect gas prices like we're tangibly feeling here in the US, but it also creates significant environmental damage that can impact ecosystems and human health for years to come, but more isolated in this instance in the Middle East. And this event highlights the vulnerability of global energy systems and the environmental risks associated with fossil fuel dependence, which is something that this case study is being used to study. Not only just economics, but environmental science. So I think that overall, the Iran war and kinetic strikes show that environmental issues are deeply interconnected with global systems and making, sustainability and resilient energy systems increasingly important in today's age. Here's my bibliography. Second slide. Third slide. Thank you so much for listening.